Chapter 6.
Chapter 6.
Created to protect. Andy stared at the ground as he walked home. He was so embarrassed and so ashamed. He hadn't meant to make anything worse for that girl. But why hadn't Emmett helped? Why had he just stood there like that? Emmett walked along next to him, but he didn't say a word. He just plodded along next to Andy as they walked toward Andy's house. "Why didn't you help her?" Andy finally asked. "I told you," Emmett said. "She's not my concern." "But I am?" Andy snapped. "Why?" "Because I was created to protect you," Emmett said. "Created?" Andy repeated. "What are you talking about?" Emmett didn't reply. He just kept his gaze on Andy's house as they walked up to the front door. "Mom!" Andy said as soon as he opened the door. "You wait here," he added to Emmett. Emmett stood in the front hall of the house and waited. Andy walked into the kitchen. Mom leaned on the counter looking through the mail. "Hi, Mom," Andy said. "I brought a friend home with me today. His name is Emmett. He's new in town." "Oh, how nice of you to make him feel welcome," Mom replied. "So, did that package from Scott come today?" Andy asked. "Nope," his mom said. "No packages at all delivered today. What kind of gift is he sending anyway?" Andy shrugged. "I don't know," he said. "He only said, 'Did you get the gift I sent you?' I don't know what." Then he realized. His mom looked up from the mail. "You don't know what, dear?" she said. "I think I just figured out what the gift was," Andy said. "And I think it's standing in the front hall right now." Chapter 7. Fighting. "I have to talk to Scott," Andy said. "Right now."
"I had to talk to Scott," Andy said. "Right now."
He and Emmett were locked in Andy's bedroom. Emmett stood next to the bed, and Andy frantically dialed Scott's cell phone number. When Scott answered, Andy barked into the phone. "What did you do?" Scott said, "Huh?" There were a lot of voices in the background. It sounded like Scott was at a party or something. Wherever he was, he sure seemed to be having fun. "The gift you sent me," Andy said, trying to speak quietly. He didn't want his mother to suspect anything was wrong. Scott laughed. "Oh, you mean Emmett?" he said. "Yeah, he's a golem. Pretty cool, huh?" Andy knew what golems were. He and Scott had read a comic book. One was created. They were the opposite of cool. They were human-like monsters, and they were really dangerous. Not to mention that creating them was like asking for evil trouble. "Pretty cool?" Andy said. "Scott, you created an ancient monster." "Oh, relax," Scott said. "Anyway, listen, I'm kind of in the middle of something right now. I'll talk to you soon, okay? And stop worrying." Scott hung up. "Great," Andy said. He put down the phone. There was a knock on the door. "Andy?" his mom said through the door. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" Andy unlocked the door and opened it. His mom stood there. She wasn't smiling. "Mom, this is Emmett," Andy said. He just moved here from Raven's Pass. Emmett said, "Nice to meet you." But he sounded bored. "Nice to meet you too," Andy's mom said. Then she turned to Andy. "Honey, I didn't just come up here to meet Emmett. I also need to speak to you right away about an email I got from the school." "Am I in trouble?" Andy asked. "Let's talk about it downstairs," his mom said. "Fine," Andy said. "You wait here," he told Emmett. Andy and his mom walked downstairs to the kitchen. "What does the email say?" Andy asked. "It says you've been fighting," his mom replied. "What?" Andy said. "I don't get in fights, Mom." "Then who is Gary Burke?" his mom asked. "He's a bully," Andy said. He sat down at the table. "He's been picking on me for a year now." "This letter says you and a friend have been fighting with Gary and his friends," Mom said. "It's not true," Andy said. "Emmett protected me from Gary and his bully friends yesterday. That's all that happened. I didn't fight with Gary." His mom sighed. Andy could tell that she didn't believe him. "How come you've never told me about this bullying before?" she asked. Andy didn't have a good answer for that. She wouldn't understand. He shrugged. The shrug made Mom even angrier. She raised her voice and said, "If you don't have an answer, then we can go meet with principal tomorrow." "Mom," Andy said. Now he was raising his voice too. "I'm telling you, Gary is a bully. I never got in a fight. He just picked on me." "And what about your friend Emmett?" Mom asked. She was really shouting now. "This letter says he's been in 2 fights in 2 days. Were they bullying him too?" Andy was too frustrated to speak. He banged his fist on the table instead. A moment later, footsteps thundered across the ceiling. Then they thundered down the steps. Then they thundered into the kitchen. It was Emmett. He stomped right up to Andy's mom and put a huge hand on each of her shoulders. "What do you think you're—" she began, but she was cut short. Emmett lifted Andy's mom right off the floor and held her up. Her head was almost touching the kitchen ceiling. Andy jumped to his feet. "Put her down!" he shouted. Emmett did not put her down. He turned his head slowly and looked at Andy. "She was angry at you," Emmett said. "She would have harmed you." "She's my mom," Andy said. "She was not going to hurt me. Now put her down." Emmett held her another moment. "If you are certain it is safe," he said. He let go of Andy's mom and she fell to the kitchen floor in a heap. Andy ran to her. "Mom, are you okay?" he said. His voice sounded anxious and childish. His mom groaned and sat up. She put her hands on her head. "Should I call for help, Mom?" Andy asked. "Are you okay?" Emmett looked down at the two of them. Mom didn't answer. She slowly lifted her head and looked at Andy, her eyes sad. Then she raised her face and looked up at Emmett. Her eyes went cold and narrow. "Give me the phone, Andy," she said. "I'm going to call the police." "The police?" Andy repeated. "Give me the phone," his mom said. Andy didn't hesitate anymore. He grabbed the phone from the counter, but Emmett snatched his wrist. "I can't let you do that, Andy," the golem said. His grip was strong, unbelievably strong. Andy cried out in pain and let phone fall to the floor. Emmett scooped it up. With one hand, he squeezed the phone until it snapped and shattered. He let the pieces drop onto the counter. "Why did you do that?" Andy asked. "If you call the police," Emmett said, "I will not be able to protect you anymore." Andy looked at his mom for a moment. She struggled to her feet. "I'll use the phone in the den," she said. Emmett made a move to stop her. "No," Andy said. He jumped between them. "Mom, don't call the police," he added quickly. She didn't answer right away. She just stood there, frozen. Emmett watched her, waiting for a reply. "Okay," Andy's mom said. "I'll handle it," Andy said. "I have an idea." He took Emmett's elbow. "Come with me," Andy said.